Okay, folks, this is the drill. This is Ron. Welcome to Story Time. Here are some of Farson's startling insights. The better things are, the worse they feel. Once you find a management technique that works, give it up. Big changes are easier to make than small ones. The more we communicate, the less we communicate. Nothing is as invisible as the obvious. Effective managers are not in control. Organizations that need help most will benefit least from the help. And these are some of the provocative new views in the art of managing people from the book, Management of the Absurd by Richard Farson. And today, Chapter 5, Effective Managers Are Not in Control. If, in all of life, paradox is the rule, not the exception, as I believe it is, then the popular view of management as essentially a matter of gaining and exercising control is badly in need of correction. Management based on techniques of control and manipulation cannot succeed in matters of the absurd. But that hardly means that the manager is lost. Only those who rely mainly on control are lost. In my experience, effective leaders and managers do not regard control as the main concern. Instead, they approach situations sometimes as learners, sometimes as teachers, sometimes as both. They turn confusion into understanding. They see a bigger picture. They trust the wisdom of the group. Their strength is not in control alone, but in other qualities: passion, sensitivity, tenacity, patience, courage, firmness, enthusiasm, wonder. The vulnerability requirement. Absurdly, our most important human affairs, marriage, child-rearing, education, leadership, do best when there's occasional loss of control and an increase in personal vulnerability, times when we do not know what to do. Let me explain. Let me make clear that I'm not talking about some continuing condition of management passivity or hand-wringing, nor am I suggesting that managers should fail to act, to exercise their authority, or to follow their own good judgment. But people need to know they are dealing with a genuine person, not someone who is managing them. Again, it has to do with the inappropriateness of technique. Think of the difference between seduction and romance. Technique is required for the former, but is useless in the latter. Being vulnerable, out of control, buffeted about by the experience, pained at any separation, aching for the next encounter, wild with jealousy, soaring with ecstasy, and plummeting with anxiety. All these are what make it a romance. If you know how to have a romance, it isn't a romance, but a seduction. Not knowing how to do it makes it a romance. Managers think the people with whom they work want them to exhibit consistency, assertiveness, and self-control. And they do, of course. But occasionally, they also want just the opposite. They want a moment with us when we are genuinely ourselves, without facade or pretense or defensiveness, when we are revealed as human beings, when we are vulnerable. This is true not just in leadership, but in every human situation. It's what wives want from husbands, what children want from parents, and what we all want from each other. It's what most arguments and conflicts are unconsciously designed to produce, to get us to reveal that the other has had an impact on us. An idea misapplied. Residents of countries outside the United States find rather bewildering the distinctly American idea that the conduct of human relationships is basically a matter of finding the right technique. They are amazed and sometimes amused by the self-help psychology books, advice columns, marriage manuals, parent training classes, and motivational videotapes that dominate our popular culture. They think we have misapplied the idea of technology and have taken it places where it doesn't belong. Perhaps they are right. It does seem impossible for American managers and others of us as well to resist the tendency to translate understanding into technique. When we begin to understand how something works, we think immediately that we will be able to make it work. That may be true in the physical world, but it is far from true in the world of human relations. Knowing how people grow, for example, does not mean we know how to grow them. Experts in child development are really no better than anyone else at raising their own children. Moreover, it should be evident to anyone who's acquainted with psychologists or psychiatrists that knowing about human relationships does not necessarily mean that we are any better at conducting them. Indeed, knowing about them may be an impediment. In some fundamental sense, we cannot learn how to have relationships, how to raise children, how to lead others, how to be human, if you will. Why? Because to a great extent, it is the very condition of not knowing, of being vulnerable to and surprised by life, of being unable to manage or control our lovers, our children, or our colleagues that makes us human. A blessing. I used to want to know how to handle my children, my employees, my students, my friends. Now it is a great relief to me to realize that I cannot. Nor, I believe, can anyone else. I especially cannot handle the people I love most. The prospect of such an achievement now appalls me. Instead, I think of it as a blessing that I and we will never learn. Many of us have the idea that as managers we can use our skills to shape our employees as if we were shaping clay, molding them into what we want them to become. But that isn't the way it really works. It's more as if our employees are piles of clay into which we fall, leaving an impression. All right, and that impression is distinctly us, but it may not be the impression we intended to leave. And that is the end of Chapter 5 of Management of the Absurd. Effective managers are not in control. As far as the commentary on this particular chapter, I'm going to leave the commentary for my blog, which is www.ronaldhardgrove.blogspot.com. And the name of the blog is Storytime. And I will go ahead and make my observations and critiques on the blog at a subsequent time. In the meantime, on Tuesday is going to be the next time that you'll be hearing from me as far as an episode of Storytime is concerned, and that's going to be for Chapter 6 of Management of the Absurd. And the title of the chapter is Most Problems That People Have Are Not Problems. Very provocative. Well, that was easy. See ya.